Where did you seek to purchase your firearm?
I went to Shooting Star. I'd heard through word of mouth that they were the place to go to purchase a firearm and get a safety training. Safety was my top priority.
Did you communicate with anyone from Shooting Star beforehand?
I did. I reached out to Skylar Coleman through email.
And would you recognize these emails if I showed them to you?
I would.
Let's record the class that I'm showing the closing counsel with what has been previously marked as a
I reached out to Skylar Coleman.
Would Your Honor like a courtesy copy? Let the record reflect that I'm approaching the witness. Have you had the opportunity to examine the document?
Yes, I have.
Do you recognize it?
I do.
How so?
These are the emails that I exchanged with Skylar Coleman when I was reaching out to talk about purchasing a firearm.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of the emails?
Yes, it is.
Have they been changed or altered in any way since you last saw them?
No, they haven't.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 15C and Exhibit 15D into evidence. Let the record reflect that I am publishing to the jury. Ms. Corbin, could you please read out loud the second and third lines of Exhibit 15C?
Of course. I'm still confused on the types of guns and how to use them. Do you think a handgun or a rifle would be better for me? I'm not sure what the difference is between the two for my needs.
And who sent this message?
I did.
Now, could you please read out loud to the court the response to this message?
Of course. Why don't you come down to the shop sometime and we can answer all those questions? Talk then.
Who sent this message?
Mr. Coleman did.
And what was your initial impression after emailing with Mr. Coleman?
To be honest, I didn't have a very good impression. I thought that Mr. Coleman's answers were pretty vague. I asked a lot of really specific questions.
Now let's talk about your first visit to Shooting Star on May 14th, 2022. Who did you speak to about purchasing a firearm?
I spoke to Mr. Coleman.
And which model were you recommended?
I was recommended the Glock 22 handgun. He said it was a good gun for beginners.
And did you purchase the gun that day?
I didn't.
When did you purchase it?
I came back 2 weeks later to finalize my purchase and take a safety course.
Let's talk about this second visit on May 28th, 2022. What happened after you arrived?
Mr. Coleman gave me some forms to complete and fill out.
And did you have to sign any documents for the safety course?
I did. I had to sign a waiver, but I regret even signing it now.
Can you tell us all a bit about the safety course?
I was led by Drew Cantrell, that was my safety instructor, and there was another person there, Nick Allred.
Can you tell us about the content of the safety course?
Mr. Cantrell started with a basic gun safety demonstration, and then we moved on to the shooting and firing part of the lesson.
And where were you standing during this demonstration?
Mr. Cantrell positioned myself to his immediate right, just about a foot away, and then Nick Allred a bit to my right.
And would you recognize a diagram of your position in the range if I showed it to you?
I would.
Let the record reflect that I am showing the closing counsel with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 2D. Would Your Honor like a courtesy copy? Let the record also reflect that I'm approaching the witness. Have you had enough time to properly examine the document?
Yes, I have.
And do you recognize it?
I do.
How so?
This is the stall that the training lesson took place at, with X's marking himself, Drew Cantrell, and Nick Allred were standing.
And this is a fair and accurate depiction of the diagram?
It is.
Has it been changed or altered in any way since you last saw it?
No, it hasn't.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 2G into evidence.
Any objection from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, you get that.
Let the record reflect that I am publishing to the jury. Ms. Carbo, could you please step down and explain the diagram for the court? Let the record also reflect that I am doing the one. Now, could you please explain to the jury what each X means?
Of course. The red X here is where I was standing. Blue X is where Drew Cantrell was standing, and the yellow X is where Nick Allred was standing.
And is this where Drew Cantrell instructed you to stand?
Yes, that's exactly where Drew Cantrell told me to stand.
Thank you, Ms. Carbo. You may return to your seat. Now, Ms. Carbo, what did Drew Cantrell tell you to pay attention to during the firing demonstration?
He told me to pay attention to how he handled the gun, to not focus on where the bullets went.
And what happened after Mr. Cantrell fired the gun?
Well, just before firing the gun, he made some sort of sudden movement, and then he fired the first shot.
Could
The
you
gun swung around, and it pointed directly at me.
could you please explain the sudden movement you saw?
It was some sort of twitch or flinch, some sort of quick movement.
And how many shots were fired?
2 shots were fired.
Did you notice anything strange before the second shot was fired?
I did. Mr. Cantrell's arm hit my left arm, and then the gun pointed downward. That's when the second shot went off. There was so much blood, and I was in so much pain. I could barely think.
Ms. Carbo, did Drew Cantrell ever tell you that you were standing too close to him?
No, never.
And did you ever move from where Cantrell instructed you to stand?
I didn't.
Why not?
I trusted Mr. Cantrell. I thought he was an expert in his field.
And Ms. Carbo, what happened after you were shot?
Someone must have called 911. The paramedics came and they rushed me to the hospital. I had to get major corrective surgery. I had to go through months of therapy just to learn to walk again.
And Ms. Carbo, do you regret going to Shooting Star?
Of course. I regret even sending that first email. I thought the Shooting Star had high standards for their experts. I thought that Drew Cantrell was an expert, but clearly they weren't.
Thank you, Ms. Carbo. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Pargo, I wanted to give you something that I hope we can all agree on. Guns are dangerous, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
And when you went into Shooting Star Gun Club on May 28th, you were fully aware of all the risks and hazards connected with being on a gun range, that's right?
But yes, I know guns are dangerous.
You knew that it was important to follow the instructions of the safety instructor, that's right?
That's right.
You knew that if you were to disobey those instructions, it could be dangerous, that's true?
Yes.
Now, I want to walk through that day with members of the jury. Mr. Cantrell began his instruction by teaching you the basic rules of gun safety, that's right?
Yes.
And not only did he verbally explain these rules, he also physically demonstrated how to follow them, that's true?
That's right.
And when the time came to aim the gun, Mr. Cantrell explained that process as well.
He did.
He physically demonstrated how to aim the gun, that's true?
Yes, that's right.
Ms. Carbo, at the time, you thought that these demonstrations and explanations were detailed, didn't you?
I did. I believe Drew Cantrell was handling the gun safely.
I want to talk about the accident itself. When you were shot in the leg, your leg went numb immediately, that's right?
It did.
You collapsed straight to the floor, that's right?
Yes, I fell forward towards the stalls. I was in so much pain.
Ma'am, is it your testimony that you fell forward towards the stalls or that you fell where you stood?
I fell forward.
Do you remember getting a sword taken from the shot?
I did.
And you would recognize that, you can see it?
I would.
Your Honor, show you the details of the witness's statement. Pushing the witness. Now, that is your statement, Ms. Harlow.
Yes, it is.
That's your name at the top.
Yes, that's right.
You were told to include all relevant information to today's case in this statement, that's right?
Yes, that's right.
Ma'am, nowhere in the sworn affidavit do you ever mention moving forwards. You mentioned falling where you stood, that's correct?
I don't believe I remember specifically what I wrote. Could you remind me?
Well, ma'am, nowhere in the statement do you ever write that you fell forward, that's correct?
I don't believe I did.
And then I'd like to move on and talk about what happened prior to the accident. Mr. Drew Cantrell, you clear instructions on where to stand, that's right?
Yes, that's right.
And it's your testimony that you followed those instructions perfectly, it's true?
I did.
You denied at any point moving any closer to Mr. Cantrell during his demonstrations, right?
That's right. I never moved.
You could turn your attention to exhibit 2G that was already given to you. Now, the red X is where you were told to stand, that's correct?
Yes,
And the blue X is where Mr. Cantrell was standing.
yes.
Your Honor, I'm showing the opposing counsel exhibit 2H. Approaching the witness. You can flip to exhibit 2H. Have you gotten there, Ms. Coleman?
I'm there.
Exhibit 2H is a photograph of the same stall, but after the incident happened, that's right?
It is.
And that's your blood on the ground, isn't it?
That's right.
Your Honor, the defense offers exhibit 2G in evidence.
Any objection from the plaintiff?
No objection, Your Honor.
It'll be admitted.
And permission to publish a digital copy of both exhibits 2G and 2A to the jury?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary, the jury. And Ms. Carter, if you could let me know when you see them on the screen.
Your Honor, we cannot see, never mind, I just came,
Okay,
sorry about that.
no, that's fine.
Can you see that, Ms. Carter?
I cannot.
Perhaps we can get the blue shirt to come in. You may just. Let's pause. For a minute while- Counsel for the plaintiff. We're just gonna, why don't we do this? I have a courtesy copy of 2G, which has been admitted. I think you have is it 2H that you have right there? And you want to compare these side to side?
We were going to digitally modify the return on top of the
Okay. Well, this is, you want to go back? Yeah, I see what you're doing. Okay. So I'm just curious. Yes. All right, no problem. So.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Ma'am, do you see exhibits 2G and 2H side by side?
I do.
Mr. Stewart, if you could superimpose them in the public place. No, ma'am, do you see the X's in the blood in the same image now?
I do not. Now I do.
And ma'am, you would agree with me that the blood is not on the red X, that's correct?
No, it is not.
You would agree with me it's more in front of the blue X?
Yes, it is towards the stalls.
It's much closer to where Mr. Cantrell was standing than where you were told to stand, that's right?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you, Ms. Carbo. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Ms. Carbo, when Drew Cantrell was giving instructions, did he instruct you to stand a specific distance away from him?
No, he didn't. He just told me to stand in a specific spot.
And Ms. Carbo, after you were shot and you fall to the ground, did your leg continue to bleed?
Yes, it did.
And how much blood was there?
Can't tell you the amount, but more than I've ever seen.
Thank you, Ms. Carbo. I have no further questions.
Redirect. Anything further from the
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. You may be excused. I think you can leave the courtroom now. The plaintiff, I think we're ready for your second witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Ross Fernandez to stand. Before I begin, I ask that my co-counsel assist me in saying the motion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I ask that I be allowed to give my comment.
Yes. Thank you. Name.
Good morning. Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Ross Hernandez, but my friends call me Rossi.
Mr. Hernandez, are you currently employed?
Yes, I am. I own my own small business, a tattoo parlor. I call it Rossi's Permanent Tattoos.
Can you explain to the members of the jury where your business is located?
So my business is located in a strip mall next to other small businesses such as Shooting Star Gun Club.
Are you familiar with Shooting Star Gun Club?
Of course I am. I'm friends with the owner, Skylar Coleman.
How often do you visit Shooting Star Club?
Well, I'm there like 4 times a week. I either go there for a snack or lunch or even a beer with friends.
To your knowledge, is Mr. Coleman's business successful?
Oh, very successful, especially since he started putting advertisements everywhere.
Are you familiar with these advertisements?
Of course I am. Who could forget the little catchy jingle? Goes a little bit something like this. Shooting star, shooting star. It doesn't matter where you are. We'll defend you.
Did Coleman tell you what his purpose behind advertising was?
Well, he mentioned that his aim was to put guns in the hands of every Imperial citizen.
Now, Mr. Chance, I'd like to discuss the employees at Shooting Star. Are you familiar with Drew Cantrell?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And what is your impression of Drew?
Well, I'm no expert on guns or anything, but it doesn't take a markswoman to clearly see that Drew Cantrell was just missing the shots.
Mr. Chance, what do you mean by missing the shots?
So I see other people shoot at Shooting Star. And usually when they aim towards a target and they shoot it, the bullet hits the target. Cantrell had this superhuman ability to just miss every single shot to the right of the target.
And this, your proper opinion,
Say more about that.
just testified having superhuman ability to miss every shot. He's only seen him shoot 2 or 3 times. There's no knowledge to make a judgment on every single shot.
This witness is an exaggeration of how she is perceived Mr. Cantrell and shooting abilities. Yes, this might be a little bit overstated saying that she has a superhuman ability. However, this witness can testify as to how she perceived the shot.
I'm gonna overrule the objection. I do think that the witness has some personal knowledge of him shooting. The jury can take from her words what they may.
Now, Mr. Chance, as a gun novice, how could you tell something is off with the shooting?
Well, like I said, when I'm at Shooting Star, I see other people shoot their target, so I just compared. And there was also basic gun safety instructions that Cantrell just ignored.
Now, would you recognize these gun safety instructions I showed them to you?
Yeah,
All right, let the record reflect on the portion of opposing counsel, those in previous remarks. The record also reflect on the portion of witness. Who's drawn on the copy? Now, have you had an opportunity to review this exhibit?
yeah,
Recognize it?
yeah.
How do you recognize it?
Well, these are the gun safety rules that was posted at Shooting Star.
Is it fair and accurate depiction of these gun safety rules?
Yeah,
Has it been changed and altered in any way?
now,
Permission of exhibit A into evidence.
Bonds from the defense.
No objection.
It'll be admitted.
Permission to publish the jury.
Yes.
Let the record also reflect and unveiling the monster. Now, Mr. Chairman, of these safety rules, which ones have you observed Cantrell break?
well, I see them break the first two. Every gun is loaded to treat every gun as if it is loaded and dangerous. And then the second one, only point at it if you want to shoot it. Keep the gun pointed downrange unless you intend on shooting it.
Mr. Chairman, can you elaborate on these two rules being broken?
Well, in May of 2021, I was at Shooting Star having lunch with a friend, and I noticed that Drew Cantrell was arguing with another employee.
And what happened after?
Well, I turned around again and it got heated. I seen Drew Cantrell lift up his right arm and point the gun at the person who he was arguing with. It was crazy. And then Skylar Coleman came running saying that we don't do that here.
Mr. Chairman, have you observed any of these other rules being broken?
Well, come to think about it, the fifth one, if it's loaded, to leave it on the line and to check to make sure that the firearm is pretty much unloaded.
Now, can you explain to the members of the jury how you saw this rule being broken?
So 6 months after the first incident in November of 2021, I went to Shooting Star and it was weirdly quiet. And I overheard Skylar Coleman and Drew Cantrell in an argument. Well, not an argument, but giving him a talking about leaving a gun loaded.
Now, how did Mr. Coleman handle these violations?
So with the May incident, after it happened, Skylar Coleman came and he took my statement of what I witnessed. And then after that, he just talked to Cantrell about the incident.
Now, did you observe any repercussions beyond talking to him?
No.
Or have you?
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hernandez.
Good afternoon.
Now, I'd like to talk about a few things you mentioned on direct. You mentioned that Drew Cantrell was a bad shot, but just to be clear, man, you've only seen him shoot 2 to 3 times out of the hundreds of times he shot.
Yeah, but out of those 2 times, I noticed that he always shot to the right compared to other people who would shoot. They would always shoot the target.
And further, you're no expert in guns.
No, I'm not.
You've never even shot a gun.
No, I'm not a markswoman.
Now, I'd like to shift to the May incident that you talked about on direct. You're aware of the fact that Coleman, the person you said saw this incident, denies having ever seen it.
I never said Coleman saw the incident. I said that he took my statement of the incident.
It's your testimony that you don't think Coleman ever saw the incident.
I know that Coleman took my statement of the incident of the May 2021 act.
But just to be clear, man, it's your testimony that in your statement never said that Coleman saw the incident.
I don't remember.
You remember giving a sworn statement for today's case?
Yeah,
And in that sworn statement, you swore to tell the whole truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth.
yeah,
Would you recognize that statement if I showed it to you?
yeah, I would.
Approaching opposing counsel with witnesses. I'll reference the line number. You can check it out. Approaching witness. I'd like to direct your attention to page 4. You could direct your attention specifically to line 79 and read silently while I read aloud. In that moment, everyone went silent. Everyone except Coleman. I'd never heard Coleman yell so loudly. They shouted, "Cantrell, don't you ever point a gun at another person in my shop." We don't do that. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah,
Just to be clear, ma'am, you were allowed to make any modifications to this affidavit before coming to trial.
yeah, but I don't see here where I said that Coleman saw the incident actually happen. I just said that I heard Coleman yell and after Coleman took my statement.
Just to be clear, ma'am, the portion I just read had Coleman punishing Cantrell for an event that he had just witnessed.
Yeah,
Exactly. Now, I'd like to shift to what you do know about this case and what you don't know. You weren't at Shooting Star on the day of the plaintiff's incident, correct?
no, I wasn't.
So you don't know if the plaintiff ignored instructions, do you?
No,
You have no idea what the actual cause of the plaintiff's incident is.
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of this expert's knowledge.
I may proffer, Your Honor, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. If she doesn't know, she's welcome to say no.
If I may, Your Honor, I'd say that regardless of that fact, it's still completely irrelevant to this witness's testimony.
I think whether or not she was there and can testify to the facts that happened are relevant, establishing that she wasn't there, so I would hold it.
Turning to my question, just to be clear, ma'am, you don't know the actual cause of the plaintiff's incident, do you?
no,
And now, the plaintiff blames Shooting Star's employment of Drew Cantrell, but Ms. Hernandez, you never worked at Shooting Star, have you?
no, but I'm there 4 times a week.
That's a yes to my question.
Yeah,
You've never even applied to work there.
no, I have,
So you have no personal knowledge of Shooting Star's retention process.
no,
You have no personal knowledge of Shooting Star's hiring process.
no, I don't work there.
And you have no personal knowledge of Shooting Star's employment promotion processes.
No,
And you certainly can't tell this jury anything about Drew Cantrell's safety certifications, can you?
no,
Or when exactly he obtained those certifications?
no,
So if, for example, Drew Cantrell obtained an instructor certificate following the gun pointing incident that you allege occurred, you'd have no idea.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
I'll rephrase. If Drew Cantrell obtained an instructor certificate following the gun pointing incident that you alleged, you wouldn't know that now.
No,
Objection, Your Honor, I'd like to raise my objection. I'll bring on this next speculation.
I think she can answer whether or not she does know, and then based on that, we can determine whether there's speculation. So I'll. Thank you.
And furthermore, if Shooting Star required him to obtain a certification after the alleged incident and before he got promoted, you wouldn't know that either.
I wouldn't.
I'd now like to shift to what you do know. You do know that you hate Drew Cantrell. I got that
Objection,
right.
Your Honor, argument.
Response to that.
Your Honor, she states multiple times in her affidavit her dislike for Cantrell. I'm merely probing that evidence.
Your Honor, I'd also like to raise objection to say that is what this is.
What, sorry, I'm sorry.
I'd also like to raise objection to hearsay. This is what the Constitution is.
I believe it's from her statement, right? And so then she can testify with respect to her statement. So I would overrule it to the extent that it's hearsay. And I'm gonna just say to the defense counsel, you know, if you're going to characterize her testimony, you need to allow her to also characterize her testimony. So I'm gonna deal with it that way. I'll overrule the objection without prejudice, but just ask the defense allows her to recharacterize if he's mischaracterized it in any way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Returning to my question, ma'am, you do know that you hate Drew Cantrell.
We're not very comfortable with each other.
You say you're not very comfortable, but it's your own words that you can't stand Drew Cantrell
At times,
at times, but you stated it broadly that you can't stand him.
I have.
Remember giving a sworn affidavit before today's trial?
Yeah,
And you sat down to write that affidavit. Plaintiff's counsel gave you strict instructions to only include evidence relevant to this case. I've got that right?
Yeah.
And you thought it was relevant for the jury to know that you can't stand Drew Cantrell.
yeah,
You also thought it was relevant for them to know that you think he's arrogant.
yeah,
Thought it was relevant for them to know that you think he's smug.
yeah. That's just my opinion on him.
Exactly. And thought the jury should also know that you dislike his personality so much, you've called him insufferable.
Yeah,
So just to be clear, man, the man you're testifying about today, the man you've called arrogant, smug, insufferable, and that you can't stand, that's the man you're testifying about today.
yeah, I am.
And just to be clear, you weren't subpoenaed by anyone to be here.
No, I wasn't.
You're testifying voluntarily.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, briefly. Your Honor. Mrs. Hernandez, why are you here in court today?
well, I'm here to share what I've witnessed and what I know about Drew Cantrell.
And do your personal feelings towards Drew Cantrell affect your opinions in this case in any way?
No, they don't. I'm only mentioning what I witnessed.
And were they biased in any way?
No,
Your Honor, very well.
Thank you. Ross.
Don't be wrong.
Thank you. Your excuse. All right, Plaintiff, next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiff will Dr. Morgan Judd to stand. Good morning, Dr. Judd. Could you please introduce yourself to the hearing? I'm Dr. Morgan Judd. Now, Dr. Judd, what field of work are you in? I make gun safety policy. And what position do you hold in that field? I'm currently an associate professor at the Center for Gun Violence Prevention at ESU. Now, what education do you have that allows you to hold that position? I have a PhD in public policy from Auburn University.
And do you have any other relevant past work experience?
Yes, I spent a decade at the ATF, that stands for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to recognize under stipulation 12, Dr. Judd is already found to be an expert in firearms safety and therefore can testify as an expert in such. Any response from the defense on that point?
No, Your Honor, it's.
Okay, thank you. So we will be accepted as an expert.
Now, Dr. Judd, how did you come to testify on behalf of Justice Carbo today? Justice Carbo's attorneys contacted me at the beginning of this year to give a report of this case.
Now, were you paid for your efforts?
Yes, I was.
Now, Dr. Judd, what were you asked to keep in mind when forming your analysis of this case?
I was asked to describe the best firearm safety protocols and guidelines. I was also asked to determine whether RFSPA, that stands for the Responsible Firearm Sales Practices Act, applied in this case. I was asked to determine whether Shooting Star Gun Club violated RFSPA in any way in the sale or entrustment of a firearm. I was also asked to determine whether Shooting Star Gun Club violated any safety rules which may have attributed to the harm caused to Justice Carbo.
Now, Dr. Judd, any claims regarding the RFSBA have been barred in this case. So I would ask that you refrain from testifying as such.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Judd, what materials did you review in your analysis of this case?
I reviewed exhibits 1 through 24 and the affidavits of Cantrell, Coleman, Nguyen, and Alvin.
Why didn't you interview any of them personally?
I didn't see it important as all the important parts of this case are contained within their affidavits.
Now, Dr. Judd, we've established that you're knowledgeable in this case. I'd like to begin talking about this case itself, more specifically, the hiring of Drew Cantrell. Does Drew Cantrell have anything about him that would make him an unlikely hire?
Yes, I found it peculiar that he was fired from his previous job for drinking.
Now, why would this be a problem with Shooting Star?
Well, Shooting Star Gun Club has a bar on site adjacent to the shooting range.
So how does this violate the industry standard?
Well, it's never good to have alcohol in the same environment as firearms, as firearms can be extremely dangerous and alcohol can be extremely intoxicating.
So how could Drew Cantrell have violated industry standard when he was hired?
Well, they hired someone who possibly had a history of drinking to an establishment to handle firearms.
Is there anything else about Drew Cantrell that would have made him an unlikely hire despite his past job experience?
Yes, he had no prior experience with firearms and he had never worked at a place with firearms.
Now, Dr. Judd, is it best industry standard to hire somebody in a position that deals with firearms with no past work experience regarding firearms?
No, it's not.
Now, Dr. Judd, I'd like to talk about firearm safety itself. What have you found through your decades of experience to be the core of firearm safety?
People are fallible. Even the most experienced experts, if they don't religiously adhere to the 5 pillars of firearm safety, they're bound to one day make a mistake, harmful or potentially even fatal.
Now, you mentioned 5 pillars of safety. Could you please tell us what those 5 pillars are?
Well, 1, always keep a firearm unloaded except when in use. 2, never point a firearm at another individual unless you intend to shoot that individual. 3, always use the proper safety mechanics when using a firearm. 4, never pull the trigger unless you intend to discharge the firearm. And 5, always be sure of your target before you discharge a firearm.
Now, Dr. Judd, did Shooting Star know about this industry standard?
Absolutely.
How so?
They had a placard of the rules up in the shooting range that basically goes over the 5 pillars in different words.
Now, Dr. Judd, are you referring to this exhibit 8?
Yes, I am.
Dr. Judd, are you aware of any times these rules of Shooting Star were broken?
I am.
Could you please step down, tell the jury which rules you were talking about during which incidents?
Yes.
Sure.
The first incident occurred in May of 2021, in which Drew Cantrell pointed an apparently loaded firearm at a fellow coworker following an argument, and he failed to use proper safety mechanisms. This breaks the rule: only point at it if you want to destroy it. Always keep the gun pointed downrange and never point a gun at anything you were not planning to shoot. Not only was he not in the shooting range, but I'm pretty sure he didn't intend to shoot his fellow coworker, yet he pointed the gun at him anyway.
Now, Dr. Judd, could you read the bottom highlighted portion, which entails the punishment for breaking one or more of those above rules?
Failure to abide by the above rules may result in removal from the facility and denial of future shooting privileges.
Thank you, Dr. Judd.
Could you tell us a little bit about what happened with Cantrell's career after this incident in May of 2021?
He was promoted to gun safety instructor.
Dr. Judd, is it best industry standard to promote somebody to a position that deals with firearms more extensively when they've broken safety rules?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Dr. Judd. Can you tell us about the incident in November of 2021 when Cantrell broke the rules again?
Before we go there, I think I'm just going to have witness come back to the witness stand, unless he's continuing to reference.
Cool.
the thing that-
Your Honor, I'm about to ask him to use the democracy. Could you tell us about what happened in November of 2021 and what rules that broke?
In November of 2021, Drew Cantrell proceeded to take a loaded firearm out of the shooting range and placed it on the display counter in the display room where it was openly accessible to anyone to just walk into the shop and pick up. This phrase, if it's loaded, leave it on the line. Check to make sure if your firearm is unloaded, the action door is open and the safety is on before bringing it off the shooting line. He directly violated this.
And once again, could you read the highlighted portion at the very bottom?
Failure to abide by the above rule may result in removal from the facility and denial of future shooting privileges.
Thank you, Dr. Judd. I'd like to talk about May of 2022. The reason we're here, Justice Carbo was shot in the leg. Could you tell us what happened prior to the day of the incident?
Well, Justice Carbo inquired to purchase a gun, and she went to go receive a training course for the gun. That is a parent Drew Cantrell hastily put together. And
Objection, Your Honor, speculation, lack of personal knowledge. There's no foundation for how Dr. Judd knows the training course was hastily put together.
Response?
Your Honor, Dr. Judd prepared an analysis of this case, and in doing so, he reviewed the affidavits of both Justice Carbo and Skylar Coleman.
Response, Your Honor.
Very briefly.
I asked
Do
you
you have more? I'm sorry.
I did have one.
Okay, go ahead, before you begin.
Dr. Judd's statements are based on what he reviewed in Justice Carbo's affidavit and what was apparent to Justice Carbo, not his own personal feelings.
Justice Carbo's statements in her affidavit are speculative as to whether or not the class was hastily put together. And I asked the foundation be laid for what specific piece of evidence Dr. Judd is trying to speak.
I'm gonna sustain that objection. I'm just gonna ask you to lay some foundation with respect to where he's getting this information from, and what statements he's relying on so that they can cross-examine those.
I understand that.
Thank you.
Dr. Judd, which affidavits again did you review in preparation for your testimony today?
I reviewed the affidavits of Justice Carbo, Skylar Coleman, Drew Cantrell, and Miguel.
And Justice Carbo's affidavit, did they say anything that would have told you how they felt about the safety?
Yes, Justice Carbo, she said when she went into the store that day that Skylar Coleman appeared that he wasn't ready for the safety course and pulled Drew Cantrell off the side.
Now, Dr. Judd,
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
I think he's just, I'm just gonna overrule that. I think he's just parroting what was in there. Obviously, cross-examine.
now, Dr. Judd, when Justice Carbo was shot, what was going on between him, Drew Cantrell, and Nick Allred?
Well, Drew Cantrell's attention was divided between Nick Allred and Justice Carbo during the course of the safety instruction.
And as a result of that, what happened?
Well, Drew Cantrell went on to teach the physical part of the safety instruction and point the gun downrange at the target. He pulled the first trigger and then a recoil happened. He, instead of releasing pressure off the trigger, he applied pressure, pulling the trigger once again. And this bullet was dislodged and ended up in Justice Carbo's leg.
Now, Dr. Judd, did this violate any of these rules?
Yes. Check your weapon, always make sure your weapon is functioning correctly, properly cleaned, and safe to use. And know your target and not. Always know that you're shooting at it and be mindful of what is around and behind your target. If Drew Cantrell had been aware of the proximity of Nick Allred and Justice Carbo to himself, this incident would have never occurred.
Thank you, Dr. Judd. Once again, could you read the highlighted portion at the bottom?
Failure to abide by the above rule may result in removal from the facility and denial of future privileges.
You may retake the stand. Now, Dr. Judd, was Drew Cantrell ever removed from the facility forcibly?
No, he was not.
Now, Dr. Judd, was Drew Cantrell ever denied shooting privileges in spite of his violations of these rules?
No, he was not.
Has Drew Cantrell faced any serious repercussions for his actions in violations of Shooting Star's own rules?
No, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't even been given a slap on his wrist for the actions on May 28th, 2022.
So Dr. Morgan Judd, what is your expert conclusion about the events of today's case?
In my expert opinion, Shooting Star Gun Club let their standards slip in hiring and promoting Drew Cantrell. Shooting Star Gun Club should have taken into consideration Drew Cantrell's criminal record. They did not. Shooting Star Gun Club should have been aware of why he was fired from his previous job. They did not inquire about this. Shooting Star Gun Club should have reevaluated the employment of Drew Cantrell after the serious May 2021 incident. They did not. Rather, they promoted him. These careless and irresponsible actions on part of Shooting Star Gun Club led to the replacement of a highly qualified gun instructor with an unqualified store clerk. In my expert opinion and in my conclusion of this case, that these actions on part of Shooting Star Gun Club directly led to the incident of May 28th.
Thank you, Dr. Judd. Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, sir. Dr. Judd, I'd like to begin by talking about a couple of things you presented here in exhibit. First, I'd like to ask you about this. Check your weapon, making sure that your weapon is functioning correctly before you fire. So you remember preparing this, correct?
Yes,
And in this report, you were told to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
That-
Recognize a copy of that report here to see it today.
that's right.
Show you to opposing counsel. Question the witness. So you were told to include everything relevant in today's case.
That's correct.
And you had up until we sat down in court today to modify this report as much as you, correct?
That is right.
So nowhere in this report do you say that Drew Cantrell was irresponsible because he failed to check the weapon, right?
Well, I may not directly reference it in this case, but in the spirit of my affidavit and all the other rules that he's broken, it became apparent to me that he did not properly check his weapon.
Well, when it became apparent, you could have included this in your report, right?
I clearly go over the instruction of the incident.
Sir, yes or no, you did not include that detail in your report, correct?
I do not believe I included that particular rule.
In fact, today in court is the first time you're speaking on it, correct?
Correct.
Now, I'd like to ask you about this, but only point at it if you want to destroy. This is in reference to May 2021.
Yes,
Now, you've read Drew Cantrell's affidavit, so you know that Drew Cantrell categorically denies pointing a weapon at another person, right?
that is right. Drew Cantrell denies this.
Yet you still concluded that he did, right?
Well, there are other eyewitnesses that say otherwise.
Despite Drew Cantrell, one of the eyewitnesses, categorically denying this allegation, you didn't reach out to Drew Cantrell for further statements, right?
That is correct.
In fact, another statement and piece of evidence that you relied on, this was Mr. Coleman's statement, correct?
That is right.
Now, you've read Mr. Coleman's statement, so you know that Mr. Coleman says that he did not see this incident happen, right?
That is right.
So you've got one person who said it didn't happen and one person who said they didn't see it, and you still concluded that it happened without reaching out for any more interviews?
Well, to me, it was adequate from the eyewitnesses that were there that it was definitely possible if the gun was pointed at his fellow
To be
coworker.
clear, you didn't conclude it was possible. You concluded that it happened, right?
Yes, that's right.
Now, I'd like to talk to you about every gun is loaded and it's loaded, leave it on the line. These are in reference to November 2021, correct?
Yes,
This is when Mr. Cantrell took a firearm from the shooting range 6 feet over to the counter. to
Objection,
unload it.
Your Honor. Attorney testifying.
Your Honor, I'm asking a question.
Your Honor. The attorney is giving details of the specific question without asking the witness to confirm a specific statement or answer a specific question. I ask that this question be broken up into specific statements.
Just ask you to just break it down a little bit for ourselves.
This is referring to an incident where Mr. Cantrell removed a firearm from the shooting range to unload it, correct?
Correct.
The place where he went to unload it in the shop was the counter, correct?
correct.
That counter is about 6 feet away from the range, correct?
Correct, but it's also openly accessible to everyone and it's not within the range itself.
Now, you'd agree that taking a firearm out of the range to unload it has nothing to do with the case involving the claim, correct?
That's right.
Now, this sentence read several times on direct examination. You see that it says failure to abide by the above rules may result in removal, correct?
That is correct.
It doesn't say that it will result in removal.
That is right.
Now, you testified as to the reason Drew Cantrell was fired from his previous job. That's fired for drinking on the job. You read Mr. Cantrell's statement, so you know that he denies having been drunk on the job, right?
That is correct. Cantrell denies this.
And this is your only source of information as to how he was fired from his previous job, right?
Well, that's not true. There's other affidavits saying that he was accused of being fired from his job for drinking.
You let that have any personal knowledge as to how he was fired.
That is true.
So the only person with personal knowledge that you read a statement of concludes that this didn't happen, right?
But he agrees that's why he was fired.
But he said that it wasn't true, right?
That's right.
And you said that he received no reprimand or slap on the wrist, as you put it, for his actions. You know that he received both verbal and written, correct?
That is right.
Sir, I want to shift gears. You'd agree that it's certainly critical for the customer in a gun safety training course to abide by the commands of the instructor.
Absolutely.
You agree that it creates an unsafe environment when the customer doesn't do as he or she is told, right?
Of course.
You agree that once the instructor tells the customer where to stand, the customer shouldn't move or crowd out the instructor, right?
Yes, but I would also say it's incumbent upon the instructor to make sure the people whom they're instructing are in the proper place.
And you'd agree, customers should not move in such a way such that their arm comes into contact with the instructors, right?
Yes.
Now, you know that Drew Cantrell, prior to being promoted to a firearms safety instructor, received both a firearms instructor certificate from the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, that's right.
That's in addition to the firearms safety certificate that he previously received.
Yes, that's correct.
So that makes 2 certifications from the state of Imperion, which say that he is qualified and safe to teach a firearms safety class, correct?
Correct.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Redirect, yes.
Now, Dr. Judd, if somebody violates an establishment's own safety rules, is it safe to keep them in the establishment?
I would say no.
Now, Dr. Judd, you just testified on cross that you only had that you reviewed 2 affidavits in preparation for your testimony today regarding that incident. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Who else saw that incident?
Well, Ross Hernandez witnessed the incident.
And what did Ross Hernandez say about it?
About the about the May 2021 incident. Ross Hernandez said that she witnessed Drew Cantrell pointing a firearm at a fellow employee.
So just to clarify, Drew Cantrell, the violator, denies it. Skylar Coleman didn't see it and wasn't sure. And Ross Hernandez was sure that they saw Drew Cantrell point a firearm at another person.
Objection.
I think it's just clarifying what was already testified, so I'm gonna forward that.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Judd, you just testified on cross that Drew Cantrell did have not 1, but 2 safety certificates. Does this matter?
No, because the other incidents that happen, when you receive a safety certificate, that just means you're qualified at the time. But as time goes on and other incidents become aware, such as the May and November 2021 incidents, you can lose that qualification. And I believe that Drew Cantrell clearly demonstrated an inability to handle firearms in the May and November 2021 incidents, thus lost this qualification.
So, Dr. Judd, was Drew Cantrell qualified to obtain the certificate at the time you received?
Yes.
Was he qualified by the time he taught the safety course?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. So you just testified on redirect that you examined the statement of Ross Hernandez in preparation for today's case, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I'm going to refer you back to that report that you prepared. If you wouldn't mind flipping to the 2nd page, top section, materials review. I'll start at line 47. Would you mind reading silently as I read aloud?
Yes.
I've reviewed the following materials in this case: depositions of Justice Carbo and Skylar Coleman, the affidavits of Nick Allred, Drew Cantrell, Avery Nguyen, and exhibits 1 through 20. Did I read that correctly?
That's right.
That list does not include Ross Hernandez, correct?
That's correct.
And nowhere in this report do you mention having reviewed Ross Hernandez's statement, correct?
That's right.
No further questions.
Or direct.
One more question, Your Honor. You reviewed Skylar Coleman's affidavit,
Yes,
and did Skylar Coleman,
Again, I think when we're going back and forth on the recross and the redirect here, I'm gonna give a little more latitude to that than I otherwise would, but just to clarify what we're talking about, so I'll just overrule that without prejudice.
who did Skylar Coleman interview in his report of this incident?
Skylar Coleman,
Yes, when this incident occurred, who did he interview as to the events?
Ross Hernandez.
No further questions.
Recross?
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. You are excused. Thank you. So I believe that that concludes the plaintiff's case. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We will, we'll take a 5-minute break. I'm going to ask the timekeepers to set the clock for 5 minutes. You can leave the courtroom if you run into the jurors or myself, with no conversation.
I've made great.
Confirm that your laptops are working fine. Are you guys getting to see the links?
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
I was able to see the one exhibit they did on.
Okay.
They're during. Should we be scoring on the computers?
No, we're just using
Like here?
Yes.
Like here, do we just?
Yes.
And then. I just wanna make sure that I can see my comments, cause I'm putting like good and bad, I'm not being like very constructive.
Yes, no one's gonna see them. I'm just gonna run them to the tab room. It's gonna be complete.
Cause I know we're going to verbally tell them, so I'm gonna make them more constructive.
Yes.
To them, but
Yes.
I'm just writing what I'm thinking.
Yeah, of course. And then just make sure on the back, there's the individual awards and make sure you. In here. Yes, so after the trial is complete, you'll go ahead and write. 3 attorneys and 3 witnesses. So we're getting.
That's what I was gonna, where are we getting the names? I thought we had a list of them.
Do you guys have a roster? With you? I don't think so.
So these are the evidence that they've given us, and then this was the written.
I'm gonna go in contact with the
Thank
police
you so
shortly and I'll get you guys roster.
Sorry.
And after the end of the trial, you guys can just make sure that you do another selection with your name for individual awards, if they don't have the TLS. I just want to make sure they know you guys' names in the end. Because your live stream is going.
Well, the judge is supposed to be the one that gets the money, not the jury, so that's the benefit of being the judge. Then if I have everybody here that needs to be here to proceed,
Yes, Your Honor.
and the defense, you have everybody you need?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we will proceed with the defense case at this time, or you ready? Okay, so we'll proceed with the defense case, and I believe by stipulation or rule, you have to call Bruce Cantrell first. You can go ahead and call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense called Mr. Drew Cantrell.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Please tell us your full name and spell your last name.
My name is Drew Cantrell, spelled Cantrell.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Cantrell?
Currently employed at Shooting Star Gun Club as a firearm safety instructor.
And as of May 28th of 2022, what was your role at Shooting Star Gun Club?
Firearm safety instructor.
Prior to being promoted to firearm safety instructor, did you receive any certifications?
Yes, I got my firearm safety certificate and firearms instructor certificate.
When did you receive your firearms safety certificate?
I got that back in November of 2020,
And when did you receive your firearms instructor certificate?
in August of 2021.
What made you want to become a firearms safety instructor? Well, I had seen colleagues and customer marksmanship skills in the range, and I really just wanted to be a part of that. Mr. Cantrell, I want to direct your attention to the day in question, May 28th of 2022. Sir, at any point, did you deviate from the proper way to instruct people how to safely handle a firearm? I did not. I'd like to walk through that day for the jury. To begin with, who were you assigned to teach a training course to? Justice Carbo and Nick Allred. And after you were assigned Justice Carbo and Nick Allred, what did you do next? Well, I brought them into the range and set the Glock 22 down, facing away from us for safety reasons. Gave them their eyeglasses, earmuffs, and began my demonstration on basic firearm safety rules. And prior to your demonstration on basic firearm rules, did you give them any instructions? I did. I told Justice Carbo to stand to my right and Nick Allred to stand to his right. Tell the jury what happened after you laid down the basic safety rules of guns. I moved into my demonstration on discharging the firearm. And Mr. Cantrell, could you tell the jury how it was that Ms. Carbo was injured? Well, when I discharged the firearm, I was met with an enormous amount of recoil, unlike any gun I've ever shot before. And Ms. Carbo must have moved into me because she hit my arm and then the gun shot her. Now, Mr. Cantrell, I'd like to talk about your time at Shooting Star prior to May 28th of 2022. Sir, at any point, have you ever violated a safety rule? I did, only one time though. When was that? In November of 2021. Your Honor, I'm showing a prison counsel. Already noted. Mr. Cantrell, just for identification purposes, what is it? This is a list of gun range safety rules we have posted around Shooting Star Gun Club. It's a fair and accurate depiction of the safety rules as you remember when you saw them? It is, yes. Sir, what rule on that list did you violate in November of 2021? I violated the rule that says if it's loaded, leave it on the line. Did you tell the jury what happened in that incident? Well, I just finished a safety course with a gun and I was bringing it out from the range into the shop to unload the gun and store it. And have you ever violated any of the other rules that we see on that list? No, I have not. Have you ever been reprimanded for anything else during your time at Shooting Star? Yes, I was. What were you reprimanded for? I was reprimanded for pointing a gun at another employee, which I can assure you never happened. So just to be clear for the members of the jury, have you at any point ever pointed a gun at somebody else in the shop? No, I have not. Thank you, Mr. Cantrell. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Cantrell. I'd like to begin by discussing your hiring process at Shooting Star. You were interviewed by Skylar Coleman, correct?
I was, yes.
During the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's it. That is correct.
And Skylar Coleman mentioned that they were desperate to make more business.
I mean, everyone was, it was 2020 and people were getting sick all the time.
And Coleman never asked you for references?
No, I guess she probably just didn't feel the need to.
And she never asked enough to find out that you were fired from your previous job?
I was let go from my job, yes.
And you were fired for drinking on the job?
That's what I was fired for, but I was never drunk on the job.
And Skylar Coleman also did not ask about your criminal record, is that right?
Again, I guess she just didn't feel the need to.
And you would recognize your criminal record if I showed it to you?
I would, yes.
Let the record reflect that I am showing opposing counsel with what has been previously marked as Exhibit 21. Which one like the courtesy function? Let the record also reflect that I'm approaching the witness. Have you had the opportunity to examine the document?
Yes, I have.
And you recognize this, don't you?
I do.
As your criminal record.
Yes, it is my criminal record.
And this is a fair and accurate depiction of your criminal record.
That's correct.
It hasn't been changed or altered in any way since you last saw it.
No, it hasn't.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 21 into evidence.
Any objection from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, it's improper character evidence as well as relevance.
May I respond?
May.
Your Honor, previous case law, including Seaton versus Patron, has established that character evidence, including the use of a criminal record, is directly relevant when discussing a negative hiring claim.
But, Your Honor, we agree that C versus Patron says that character evidence is an essential element of negligent retention in hiring cases. However, this specific character evidence, criminal record that only references traffic violations, has no relevant, or as the first cause of action says, presents no particular risk to people in a gun range and firearm safety. And I ask that if they want to prove that this is relevant, that they at least lay some foundation that traffic violations have any correlation with gun safety and the particular risk that comes to this conduct.
May I respond? Your Honor, the character trait that I am offering to show for evidence is a history of recklessness and repetition.
Response to that?
Yes, Your Honor, we agree that that might be a character trait in only the traffic violations, but I ask that they lay the foundation that has any relevance to gun safety on the day in question and how that led to Mrs. Carver's injury.
Was there a stipulation regarding this in relation to the for this matter?
Your Honor, there is a stipulation, number 10, that rules in limine that Exhibit 21 is a public record. However, there is not a stipulation regarding the character of in question.
I'm going to sustain the objection and not admit this as of right now. You're free to ask questions if it's appropriate to admit at a future time, that we will go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, Mr. Cantrell, Skylar Coleman never brought up your criminal record before hiring you, is that right?
She did not.
Now, let's discuss your employment at Shooting Star. You first worked as a sales clerk, correct?
I did, yes.
But you wanted to become a firearms safety instructor.
That is correct.
But you ran into a roadblock in May of 2021, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Because you were written up for pointing a gun at another employee.
That's what I was written up for, but again, I can assure you it never happened.
And pointing a gun at another employee is a clear violation of the safety rules.
If it were to happen, that would have been a violation, yes.
But you were still promoted.
Yes, that's correct.
Then you violated the safety rules again in November of 21. Is that right?
Unfortunately, I did, yes.
By bringing a loaded gun outside of the safety range, or of the gun range.
That is correct. And I was reprimanded. It also never happened again.
Yes, you were reprimanded, but Skylar Coleman never demoted you, did they?
Well, like I said, she reprimanded me and probably deemed that sufficient enough for me to continue working.
She never retrained you,
No, she did not.
and your firearms safety privileges remained intact.
That is correct.
So with 2 violations in under 6 months, Skylar Coleman did nothing beyond verbally reprimanding you, is that correct?
Well, she did write me up and state that if there were to be any more incidents, that termination would be a likely result.
Now, let's discuss your involvement with Justice Carbo's injury. You were teaching the safety class that day, correct?
I was, yes.
And you were giving out safety instructions during the demonstration,
That is correct.
such as putting Justice Carbo and the ALRA into position.
In a place where they could be safe and best view the demonstration.
And you placed them to your right.
Yes, that is correct.
But you did not tell them to stand a specific distance away from you, did you?
The place that I would have put them was a safe distance away, and since I placed them there, that they should have stepped in.
And you never told Justice Carbo that they were standing too close to you.
Well, again, I placed her in a safe space, and when I was discharging the firearm, that's when she had moved closer and bumped me.
Then you shot Justice Carbo.
I did not shoot Justice Carbo.
You did not shoot Justice Carbo.
The gun went out of control, fell out of my hands, and probably misfired into Justice Carbo's leg.
And you heard Justice Carbo. You saw them fall to the floor.
I did, yes.
You heard someone call 911.
I yelled for someone to call 911.
And you saw Justice Carbo rushed off to the hospital.
I did, yes.
Yet you still work at Shooting Star.
I was found to be at no fault for this incident, so yes, I do.
And you're still a safety instructor.
Again, I was found at no fault for this incident.
I have no further questions.
Redirection.
Mr. Cantrell, would you place Ms. Carbo in a location where she could hit you at any point?
Of course not. I would never do that.
Thank you, Mr. Cantrell. No further questions, Joe.
Recross.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down, and I believe you may leave the courtroom now. Also, would you like to just come and get this 21 off?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. Would you like me to take your copy as well?
That's fine. All right, let's call it next.
Defense counsel, Jackie Stock. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Jackson Alexander Staub. Staub spelled S-T-A-U-B.
Mr. Staub, what do you do for a living?
Well, I own a firearms consulting called Staub Examiner.
What is firearms consulting?
It captures multiple things. I consult on both firearm safety and tool mark examination.
I'd like to now shift to why you're in court with us today. What's your involvement in the plaintiff's shooting incident?
I was hired by Shooting Stars Council to evaluate whether Drew Cantrell was qualified and fit to serve as a firearm safety instructor.
Before we dig into that evaluation, can you tell the jury a little bit more about your education?
Yes, sir. I have a bachelor's degree in physics from the United States Military Academy at West Point.
Do you possess any experience with firearms?
Yes, sir. I do. During my time in the military, I was trained on and worked with firearms daily. After graduation from the academy, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant, deployed to Iraq as an artillery officer. Served that role for 7 years.
Do you have any safety certifications for firearms?
Yes, sir, I do. As a civilian, I earned 2 safety certifications, both from the Imperial Department of Justice, U.S. Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco Firearms.
And do you have any experience teaching firearm safety?
Yes, sir, I do. My company offers a firearm safety course that I've personally taught for the past 9 years.
And are you published in the field of firearm safety?
Yes, sir. 2020. The American Journal of Preventative Medicine. The peer-reviewed article addressed the role of firearm safety education in a gun-bearing society.
Your Honor, the defense tenders Mr. Staub as an expert in firearm safety under Rule 702.
Response from the plaintiff.
Yes, Your Honor. As is stipulated, this actual witness can only be tendered as an expert under gun mechanics.
What's your response to that?
Your Honor, all because he's been tendered as an expert in mechanics doesn't mean he doesn't have experience for safety. He's already demonstrated experience, having served in the battlefield, and knowledge. He's published in the field of firearm safety, and he's taught hundreds of firearm safety courses.
Can I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Yes, while this witness does have experience in that field, this witness has only been found reliable in explaining firearm mechanics.
Is there a rule on this as it relates to the competitions?
And there's a stipulation that this witness has been tendered as a firearm safety.
Is it only tendered or is tendered as?
Under stipulation 13B.
Can you bring that?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the court did make a previous ruling on this. Um,
I would offer, Your Honor, all because you've been pre-tendered, only in one category, this is.
and that's what I'm going to say. I would allow you support here if you'd like that opportunity. I don't think that stipulation, or excuse me, that was the court's ruling before. I don't think that ruling necessarily excludes his testimony elsewhere. Of course, you're welcome to, the plaintiff's welcome to board here now, or to use cross-examination to poke holes at that. I do think there was foundation laid for the fact that he does have at least some knowledge in firearm safety. So plaintiff, I'll leave it to you to determine what you'd like to do at this point. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to return to your evaluation, shooting star safety instructor. Did you have sufficient facts and data to reach conclusions about the fitness of Drew Cantrell to teach firearm safety?
Yes, sir, I did. I reviewed the written statements, deposition testimony of 5 different people with knowledge, including Mr. Cantrell, Mrs. Carbo, the owner of the shooting star, and 2 eyewitnesses from the incident. Also independently reviewed exhibits 1 through 22, and provided exhibits 24 and 25.
Did you apply reliable principles and methods to reach those conclusions?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you reach those conclusions to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Staub, what exactly did you conclude about the fitness of Drew Cantrell to teach firearm safety on May 28th, 2022?
I determined that Mr. Cantrell was qualified and fit to teach firearm safety.
I'd like to now shift to why you concluded he was fit for the job. What led you to that conclusion?
Well, there were a few different things. I took into account Mr. Cantrell's firearm safety certifications, his experience with firearms, and his track record with firearms.
You mentioned 3 things, and I'd like to take each of those individually. First, his safety certifications. Did Drew Cantrell possess any safety certifications?
Yes, sir, he did. When Drew Cantrell was promoted to firearm safety instructor, he had possessed 2 safety certifications, both from the state of Imperial. He earned a firearm safety certificate and a firearms instructor certificate.
What is a firearm safety certificate?
It's a certificate holder that from the state of Imperial that the certificate holder has been trained on and is proficient in firearm safety.
You mentioned that he had 2 different certificates. What'd you say the second one was?
Yes, sir, a firearms instructor certificate.
Now, how is an instructor certificate distinct from a safety certificate?
Well, you see, a firearms safety certificate signifies that the person has had to safely use the firearms themselves. However, a firearms instructor certificate is a higher certificate that grants the right to train others on firearm safety.
And what do both of these certificates signal to you?
Sir, they signal competence with firearms.
And in your professional opinion, what does the presence of an instructor certificate signal to prospective employers like Shooting Star about the fitness of someone to teach firearm safety?
Well, sir, you want these safety certifications to be from your instructor. For example, this is exactly what a prospective employer should be looking for. You want them to have these exact certifications.
Now, the second thing you mentioned was his experience with firearms. How does experience play in your conclusions?
The more experience you have with firearms, the more qualified and fit you are to be a firearm safety instructor.
And how much experience exactly did Drew Cantrell have with firearms?
Sir, Mr. Cantrell had over 2 decades of experience with firearms. That strongly indicates his fit.
The final thing you mentioned was his track record with firearms. What do you look for when evaluating someone's track record?
Well, you want to make sure either there haven't been any issues, or if there was an issue, it was an isolated event. I repeated that.
So in this analysis of someone's track record, how far back do you typically look?
Well, it depends. But for Mr. Cantrell, it was very simple. You see, the state of Imperial issued Mr. Cantrell's license in August of 2021. So I began looking from that day forward.
Sir, why does the presence of a license in August mean you only looked from that point forward?
Sir, that's the whole point of licensing. The state, August of 2021, determined that Mr. Cantrell was qualified and fit to serve as a firearm safety instructor. Therefore, I'm looking for anything that the state couldn't have taken into account because it hadn't happened.
Were there any mistakes from August forward?
Yes, sir. One,
What happened in that mistake?
Shooting Star's instructor unloaded the bullets from a gun in the wrong room. Mr. Cantrell took the bullets out of a firearm in the store portion of the business rather than on the range, only 6 feet away. Now, though this was a violation to Shooting Star's policy, it's not an inherently unsafe thing to do. Loading a firearm is a normal activity.
Were there any other technical mistakes like this one that occurred?
No, sir. This was an isolated event.
So after the State of Imperial had certified Mr. Cantrell to teach firearm safety, were there any mistakes that rendered him unfit to do so?
No, sir. It is my opinion that Mr. Cantrell was qualified and fit to teach firearm safety.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
It's, before the plan begins with cross-examination, we ask for a brief time check. Sure.
Has 18 minutes and 34 seconds.
And before I begin, may I reset my demonstrative?
Yes. Thank you. You agree with that? Like the first one, the defense, their content.
The defense has
Put you on the spot for your, wasn't that?
20 minutes, 24 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. Darcy, you may.
Good afternoon, Mr. Saab.
Good afternoon.
Now, I'd like to first off by discussing the safety course. Coleman told Cantrell to teach Carbo the safety course, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And you think that Cantrell is perfectly fit to teach firearm safety,
Yes, sir. Qualified and
despite 2 past violations, correct?
yes, sir. Previous violation.
These 2 violations were in the 6-month period,
Yes, sir. They were prior to the state issuing its license.
and one of these violations was pointing a gun at another individual.
Yes, sir. However, it did not impact my analysis because that was prior to the state issuing its license. Therefore, it didn't impact my analysis.
And the other violation was leaving a loaded firearm lying around.
Yes, sir. It wasn't lying around, but it was in the store portion of the business 6 feet away from the range.
Now, Mr. Staub, you've reviewed firearm safety rules, correct?
Yes, sir. I have.
And you would agree with me that all firearms should be checked before use?
Yes, sir. I agree.
However, Cantrell did not test the Glock 20 firearm before use, correct?
Sir, it was a brand new gun that he had just gotten. If he tested the gun, it would have become a used gun.
However, today you claim that the cause behind Carbo's injury is the physical nature of the Glock 20 firearm, correct?
Yes, sir. In specific, an overly sensitive trigger. You see, most Glock 22s have a normal trigger pull, a sensitive trigger pull. However, this gun, when I examined it, had an overly sensitive trigger pull.
Now, you say that the recoil caused Cantrell to lose control, correct?
It was part of the overly sensitive trigger pull combined with the harsh recoil. Yes, sir.
However, this whole interaction could have been avoided. Cantrell had tested the Glock 20 firearm before use, correct?
No, sir, not necessarily.
However, Cantrell had tested the firearm before use, he would have gone good with the recoil, correct?
There's a possibility.
And you would have gone good with the light trigger?
A possibility, sir, but then it wouldn't have been a used gun.
Now, after Cantrell's 2 violations, he never received any additional training, correct?
No, sir.
Or face any severe repercussions?
No, sir.
Now, I'd like to discuss your report. You did not base your report upon Carbo's assumption of risk, correct?
No, sir.
Nor Carbo's liability waiver,
I did not.
nor Carbo's interference.
No, sir.
You instead based your report on the accounts of Avery Nguyen, correct?
Yes, sir. Mr. Webb.
And witness who did not even see the event clearly?
No, sir. He saw the event with his own eyes.
Or if this witness saw the event out of the corner of their eye, correct?
Through his own eyes. Yes, sir.
30 feet away from where Carbo and Cantrell were standing.
Yes, sir. Only 30 feet away.
And 30 feet away, there were several partitions between Nguyen and Carbo and Cantrell were standing.
Yes, sir. There are partitions, but he wasn't at the partition. He was at the table.
However, he was several partitions away.
Yes, sir. Only 30 feet away.
Driving for the partitions.
Redirection.
Briefly.
Yes.
You were asked on cross-examination about checking a new gun before it's sold. Is checking a new gun by firing it before it's sold standard industry practice?
No, sir. It is not standard industry practice.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. No further questions.
Thank you. Anything further from the planner? No. I believe you can excuse. Thank you. All your final.
Your Honor, the defense calls Mr. Avery. Now proceed, you may. Good afternoon, Mr. Gwynn.
Afternoon.
Will you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
The name's Avery Gwynn, and you spell it Nguyen. But just about everybody that knows me calls me Gunner. And that's on account of folks saying, I know more about guns than fellas Colt, Smith, and Wesson all put together.
Tell the jury a little bit about yourself, Mr. Gwynn. Where are you from?
I'm from a little hole in the wall called Lafayette, Tennessee. Spelled like the French Lafayette, but pronounced Lafayette. Anyhow, my mama, God rest her soul, moved us up to Imperial when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I never left.
What do you do for a living?
Well, now, I've got me one of the 9-to-5 desk jobs pushing papers about, but I don't live to work. I work to live. And for me, that means spending most of my time up in a deer stand. And if I ain't in the woods hunting, you'll find me at the range.
When you say range, do you mean the shooting range?
Now, son, do I look like a golfer to you? Of course I mean the shooting range.
Fair enough, Mr. Gwynn. Have you ever visited my client's business, the Shooting Star Gun Range?
I sure have. Shooting Star's got the finest setup in the state. You'll find me there most Sundays after church. Camped out in stall 3.
Were you at the Shooting Star Gun Range on May 28th of 2022?
I was. That's that old gal hauled off. Got herself shot in the rookie quarters.
Did you see that shooting happen?
I did. It was about 8 stalls down from where I was.
You mentioned stall 3 earlier. Were you at stall 3 when that shooting occurred?
Actually, I was at a table behind stall 3, working on my rifle.
Did you recognize a photograph of the Shooting Star Gun Range if you saw it?
I reckon so.
Your Honor, approaching topic is 2F. Approaching the witness. Now, Mr. Gwynn, can you please flip to exhibit 2F in that folder? Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Do you recognize exhibit 2F?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify it, please?
This here's a picture of the range over at Shooting Star.
And is this photograph an accurate depiction of the Shooting Star Gun Range as you remember it on May 28th of last year?
It is.
Your Honor, the defense offers exhibit 2F evidence. Response from the plan? It'll be admitted. Now, Mr. Gwynn, I notice here in this photograph that each stall is numbered. Where were you located again?
I was at a table behind stall 3. Always stall 3 for me. They even named it after me. Call it Averstown.
And where did the shooting occur?
Stall 11, down to the other end.
Did you have a clear view of stall 11 where you were behind stall 3?
I did. There wasn't no one using stalls 4 through 10 that day, so I had a straight line of sight.
How much distance was there between where you were behind stall 3 and stall 11?
I reckon there was about 30 feet tops.
Who were you able to see at stall 11?
Well, there was Drew Cantrell. Drew works there at the Shooting Star. And he was teaching a rookie course that day with 2 trainees. Miss Carbo, and then one other fellow. What was his name? I met him. Allred or something like that.
Can you describe for the jury how these 3 people were positioned with respect to each other?
Well, Drew was closest to me. He was in the middle of stall 11. And then Miss Carbo was back behind him and to his right a little bit. And then Allred, he was further back.
Please tell the jury what happened.
Well, started to see Drew aiming downrange. Everything looks normal. But that's when all of a sudden, Carbo started crowding up on Drew.
What do you mean when you say the plaintiff began crowding up on Shooting Star's instructor?
Well, what I mean was, she moved in real close.
Did Shooting Stars instructor react to that movement?
No, sir. And to tell you the truth, I don't think he would have even seen it because, like I said, Carbo was behind his shoulder.
And then, Mr. Gwynn, what happened when the plaintiff began crowding up on Mr. Cantrell?
Nary a thing at first. But after that first shot got fired, old Carbo there jumped like a cat on a hot tin roof.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that phrase. What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess you ain't spent much time in Tennessee then. What I mean was, she was jumpy as all get out. And after that first shot got fired, that's when Carbo jumped and that's when she bumped into Drew and that's when it all went south.
What happened as a result of that physical contact?
Drew's right arm moved and gunfire again.
Did anything happen after that?
Carbo fell to the floor, screaming and hollering.
Thank you, Mr. Gwynn. I have no further questions, Drew.
Thank you. Cross-examination. Morning.
So you enjoy working on your guns.
Yeah, it's my pride and joy.
You often become engrossed working on your rifle's appearance and function.
Yeah, I love doing what I do.
And you go to Shooting Star Gun Club quite frequently.
Yep, I'm a regular.
And while you're there, you purchase firearms,
Uh-huh,
you work on your firearms,
I do.
and you do this often in stall 3, neighbors,
Guilty as charged.
or one of the tables behind stall.
Sure,
And you're familiar with the owner, Skylar Coleman.
I am.
You know him because you go there quite often, as you previously said.
That's right.
And you're also familiar with Drew Cantrell, the employee.
Uh-huh, I know Drew.
You've seen him multiple times in the store.
I have.
You saw him in May of 2021.
I did.
You saw that Drew Cantrell raised a gun at another person in the store.
Yeah,
He raised a weapon pointed directly at another person that was in the store.
yeah,
And you saw Drew Cantrell again in May of 2022.
that's right.
He was still employed there
He was.
as firearms safety instructor.
I believe so.
And you observed a firearms safety demonstration,
I did.
which involved Drew Cantrell,
It did.
Justice Carbo,
Him too.
and Nick Allman.
Him three.
And while you were there, you were behind stall 3 working at a table.
Yeah, working on mine.
You were working on your right.
Exactly.
And you weren't focused on the demonstration that was installed on it.
Not at first. I was working on my rifle.
And as you previously stated, you often become focused and engrossed in your work on your rifles.
Yeah, but I get distracted too. It's only you.
So you only saw the demonstration out of the corner of your eye.
That's right.
It wasn't your main priority to be focused on what was happening in stall 11 on that day, May 20th.
No, I was working on my rifle.
Figure out.
Anything further from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gwynn, on cross-examination, you stated that you saw the events that took place out of the corner of your eye. Were you looking out of the corner of your eye the whole time the instruction course was happening?
No, at first I was when I was working on my rifle, but after what was going on caught my attention, I changed my periphery to the events going on.
And to be clear, did you have a direct line of sight from where you were to where the shooting occurred?
Yes, sir, I did.
Thank you, Mr. Gwynn. I have no further questions.
Withdraw.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Well, Your Honor, one moment to convene.
I'm sorry. You're opposing for your co-counsel.
Your Honor, one moment to convene.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think with that, you may step down. And the defense rests at this point in time, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will just take a brief 5-minute break again. If not, people can take a 5-minute break and then we'll proceed to close. Thank you.
It's already closed, yeah? Yeah. I feel like the second part went by so fast. Yeah, me too. I would love to have like the names of, maybe she would give us. She's supposed to give it. Have some favorites. Yeah. I've been trying to remember who's doing what because I need to. Yeah, I grade it. I also did some notes. What does it extemp mean? Extemp. Extemporaneous is if the judge has to follow up on things. Like we just live it. We're not there yet. Okay. But we don't always have. We might not. Got it. Thank you. This will depend on how the case goes. Yes, we need a little moving. Yeah.
She's in. Oh, yeah, she's gonna give you the list. And we could, you're gonna fill it out. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It says the usual greatest complete courtroom. You can't. Oh, yes. That should have the team like. And it'll have the rough description. Is that what you're looking for?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So I'll present
this. I'm just letting
Oh, I've got it. And I will check anything else.
Is it through the scorecard?
I cannot find that email.
Yes.
Find it?
When you first click on the scorecard, you can go down to it.
I'm sorry, I cannot find it.
Yes.
Yes, it's email from Justin. That one?
Oh, no, the email sent that reminder, the one that was sent out, like when we were in the breakfast.
That one.
So when you put the inbox, it's not having. Yeah, so when you put the details on the phone, you just open it and then the line is at the bottom.
Team. Team lineup, I see. We'll find everything.
Oh, okay. And just let you guys know, this is the other thing too.
Yeah.
I almost removed the live because you can't see the witness at all. I think you're supposed to be able to.
Everything changed.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's.
This same question. They said we would be able to clarify at the end, but I'm not sure what it means. Yeah, so.
Another chair?
Yeah, I'm fine.
We don't even understand.
Yeah.
You can get a understand.
More you guys can use this. And you both sit there and both use it. I mean, that, if that's, because they should be able to see, right? If they're there.
I'll remove the chair.
Sort yourselves out in some way. Gonna just move this and so I can see you guys.
Yeah, move it closer to the beginning.
That's fine. If you want to put it back up, I work. I just. Okay, plaintiffs ready to proceed?
Yes.
Okay, are the defendants ready to proceed again?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So in this jurisdiction, the plaintiffs will present their closing arguments first. Are you reserving any time for rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor, may I reserve any remaining time?
Yes. Okay, you may proceed when you're ready.
The standard slipped. Your Honor, the closing counsel, and members of the jury. Shooting Star Gun Club had a standard. They had a standard for safety. They had a standard for employment, but they let their standards slip. The case today is not about safety. You may think that Shooting Star Gun Club was a safe entity. You may think that Shooting Star Gun Club was the safest gun range on earth. Heck, it was. That doesn't matter. Shooting Star Gun Club could have been the safest gun range ever. But if they were negligent in the hiring, retention, or supervision of the employee, Drew Cantrell, you must find them liable. And you will. Skylar Coleman, the owner of Shooting Star Gun Club, conducted an interview with Drew Cantrell when hiring. But Coleman didn't know that Drew Cantrell had a criminal record. Coleman didn't know that he had no experience with guns. And Coleman didn't even ask for references from the previous establishment. It's because Coleman didn't care to ask. Coleman was hurting for help. The height of the COVID pandemic, Shooting Star Gun Club was suffering. And they needed to hire someone. And Drew Cantrell applied. Skylar Coleman was hurting for help. And Drew Cantrell just happened to be there. And even after the May 2021 incident involving Cantrell, Drew Cantrell raised a weapon at another person in the store. This was a direct violation of the gun range safety rules that Shooting Star Gun Club had posted on their wall. They had a standard for safety. But rules hanging on the wall in a gun range won't be of any help if the people holding the weapons don't abide by them. Standards not kept are no better than having no standards at all. Today, the plaintiff has taken on a burden that we have to prove to you beyond the preponderance of the evidence. If we were to quantify this burden, that would mean 51%, or more likely than not. You must only be 51% convinced that Shooting Star Gun Club was negligent in the hiring, retention, or supervision of the employee Drew Cantrell. You must only be 51% convinced in one of those three key aspects of our claim. You must meet 5 elements in order to prove our claim. First, we must prove that Shooting Star Gun Club employed Drew Cantrell. That fact is obviously not in dispute. Second, we must prove that Drew Cantrell was or became unfit to perform the duties by which he was hired to perform. We have undoubtedly met this element of our claim today. We have proven to you that Drew Cantrell was never even fit in the first place to be operating a firearm as firearm safety instructor. Drew Cantrell was hired as a store clerk with absolutely no experience receiving or giving firearms safety instruction in the past. He merely obtained 2 certificates. But a certificate does not equal training. Drew Cantrell had never received direct instruction on how to perform firearm safety demonstrations. He had merely observed professionals in their field. And Skylar Coleman did not even ensure that he had the proper experience. Coleman took his word for it and promoted him because of his enthusiasm about guns. Not because of qualifications, not because of safety, just because he loved being around firearms. Third, knowledge. We must prove that Skylar Coleman knew or should have known that Drew Cantrell was unfit. We've demonstrated this to you today by showing you that Skylar Coleman
verbally reprimanded Cantrell after every incident. So Skylar Coleman was obviously aware of the rule violations. Exhibit 8, you've heard so much about this exhibit today. Dr. Morgan Judd got on the stand and testified and told you exactly how each of these rules was broken. Check your weapon. Always make sure your weapon is functioning correctly, properly cleaned, and safe to use. Members of the jury, the incident today could have been avoided if only Drew Cantrell had tested the firearm that he was using, the Glock 22 handgun. If Drew Cantrell had tested this firearm previous to the firearm safety demonstration, he would have been able to tell the level of recoil and compensate for it. He should have reasonably known how to compensate for the recoil and how to use this gun if he was so overly qualified and experienced as the defense tried to portray him to you today. Fourth, we must prove that there was harm, that Justice Carbo endured harm as a result of these actions by Drew Cantrell. And there was harm. Justice Carbo suffered a shot to the leg, but the harm didn't stop there. She lost things in her personal life. She used to be a marathon runner. She can't do that anymore. She can't even stand for long periods of time without experiencing the same pain. Revisit. And fifth and finally, we must prove that the hiring, retention, or supervision of Drew Cantrell is the direct and proximate cause of the harm that Carbo endured. We've proven this to you today by showing you, by preponderance of the evidence, that if Drew Cantrell hadn't been promoted, if the man who pointed a weapon at another person hadn't been promoted to firearm safety instructor, this incident never would have happened in the first place. Drew Cantrell never would have been able to be in a position to fire or teach Carbo how to fire a weapon. And with plaintiff, meaning all 5 parts of our claim, we have proven to you, the jury, by preponderance of the evidence, that Shooting Star Gun Club is liable. And when making your decision, we ask that you remember, Shooting Star Gun Club had standards. They had standards for safety. They had standards for hiring. The person who was firearm safety instructor before Drew Cantrell went on to work for the United States Department of Defense. That's quite a high bar. But with Drew Cantrell, they let those standards slip. Thank you.
You. Defense closing.
Yes, sir. May it please the court, backers, and members of this jury. Ignoring instructions is dangerous. That's what Mr. Parikh told you at the beginning of today's trial. And there are many cases where that's true. If you're on a crosswalk and there's a sign that says, "Do not walk," you would know not to walk. That would be dangerous. If you're at a construction site and there's a sign that says, "Do not enter," you wouldn't enter because you know that that would be dangerous. If you're on the highway and you break the most fundamental rule of driving to always have your seatbelt on, you know that that would be dangerous. Now, members of the jury, crosswalks, construction sites, and highways, they're all inherently dangerous places, much like the gun range in today's case. Which is why following instructions in these places becomes even more important. Because if you fail to follow instructions, it results in an injury. And that is exactly what happened in today's case.
Ms. Carbo walked into Shooting Star gun range, a place that she admitted on cross-examination was an inherently dangerous place, and disobeyed the instructions of her state-certified firearm safety instructor. Now, as the plaintiff, they have the burden of proof. They must prove to you all by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Cantrell was unfit to be a firearm safety instructor, that Shooting Star Gun Club knew or should have known that he was unfit. And lastly, they have to prove that the hiring and retention of Mr. Drew Cantrell as a firearm safety instructor was a direct and proximate cause of Ms. Carbo's injury. But members of the jury, they forgot one other thing. They forgot about our affirmative defense. If we prove to you by 51% likelihood that Ms. Carbo moved from the position that she was told to stand, that lowers the plaintiff's claims. It means that you find the defendant not liable. Throughout the trial, we've highlighted 3 facts, all of which both prevent the plaintiff from meeting their burden and bolster our affirmative defense. Fact number 1, Drew Cantrell was a state-certified firearm safety instructor. Fact number 2, Justice Carbo moved from where she was told to stand. And fact number 3, Justice Carbo's movement from where she was told to stand caused her own injury. Now, members of the jury, I'll take each of these one at a time, starting with the first fact, that Drew Cantrell was a state-certified firearm safety instructor. Members of the jury, he wasn't just certified once by the state. He was certified twice, both in firearm safety and in firearm safety instruction. The state of Imperion deemed him fit to not only handle firearms, but also to safely instruct people how to handle firearms. Dr. Staub told you on the witness stand that these aren't just certifications, they're qualifications. Dr. Staub told you that in his expert opinion, he believed that Drew Cantrell was fit to be a firearm safety instructor. Over the past 9 months as a firearm safety instructor, he had taught hundreds of Shooting Star customers how to safely handle, load and unload and fire firearms, all with only one, as Dr. Staub put it, minor safety infraction. You learned today that the May 2021 incident where he supposedly aimed the gun at somebody else in the shop simply didn't happen. The person that wrote him up for it claims that they didn't even see the incident occur, but rather heard someone else tell them. Mr. Cantrell sat on the witness stand and told you that he would never, under any circumstance, aim a gun at another person. Mr. Cantrell knew what he was doing. That brings me to the second fact, that Justice Carbo disobeyed the instructions set out by Drew Cantrell. Members of the jury, you saw the cross-examination of Ms. Carbo. You saw that the X where she was told to stand, the blood on the ground after she was shot, it's not on that X. It's in front of the X where Mr. Cantrell was standing. If you look in your deliberations at the blood on the ground, you'll notice that it's not all over the place. It's in one location, because that is where Miss Carbo was when she was shot, because she had moved from where she was told to stand. You also heard Mr. Gwen say on the witness stand that 8 stalls away with a direct line of sight to stall 11, he saw Miss Carbo crowding Mr. Cantrell during his demonstration. And that brings me to the third fact, that Miss Carbo's moving from where she was told to stand caused her own injury. When Mr. Cantrell raised his right arm to fire the gun down the range, he told you on the witness stand that it fired with more recoil than any handgun he had ever experienced before. Now, of course, members of the jury, this would not have been a problem for an experienced shooter like Mr. Cantrell. But the problem was that Miss Carbo had moved. when his arm was sent slightly to the right after the recoil, Miss Carbo jumped. And because she had moved closer to Mr. Cantrell, when she jumped, she made contact with his arm, driving it down, leading him to drop the gun. Then a second shot was fired. All because she had moved from where she was told to stand. Now, I want to address a couple things that Ms. Backham said when she was giving her closing arguments. Firstly, I want to address what Dr. Judd said on the stand. Dr. Judd told you that if Mr. Cantrell had simply test fired the gun prior to bringing it into the range, that none of this would have happened. Members of the jury, you know two things. One, our expert, Dr. Staub, told you that that simply just isn't true. And secondly, he also told you that there is no evidence that that's even standard practice in the gun industry. He told you it would make it a used gun, not a new one. And not only that, you saw the impeachment of Dr. Judd. Nowhere in her sworn affidavit, and his sworn affidavit doesn't say anywhere that you must test fire the gun prior to its use in a safety instruction program. It's because it's a fact that he made up in court today, and it's not industry standard. Members of the jury, standards didn't slip. Ms. Carbo moved. All of this is why we asked you to find the defendant not liable for the negligent retention and hiring of Mr. Drew Cantrell. Because ignoring instructions is incredibly dangerous. Thank you.
How much time is available for rebuttal?
4 minutes and 50 seconds, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Ladies of the jury, ignoring instructions is dangerous. Let's talk about some of those instructions. Only point at it if you want it destroyed. This is a simple instruction given to anyone wielding a weapon, the gun. And it should be start gun. Only point at it if you want it destroyed. Ignoring that instruction would be quite dangerous. And you know who ignored that instruction? Drew Cantrell, the employee of Shooting Star Gun. If it's loaded, leave it on the line. Once again, Drew Cantrell ignored that instruction, creating a dangerous environment for anyone in the store that had access to a loaded gun that was not in the gun range. Check your weapon. Always make sure your weapon is functioning correctly, properly cleaned, and safe to use. Another ignored instruction by the employee, Drew Cantrell. Drew Cantrell did not test his weapon prior to use in the gun range on May 28th, 2022. Ignoring instructions is dangerous. And there were clear instructions that Drew Cantrell had to abide by. And in not following these instructions and ignoring these instructions, he created a dangerous atmosphere for anyone in Shooting Star Gun Club during his employment. Failure to abide by the above rules may result in removal from the facility and denial of future shooting privileges. Skylar Coleman posted these rules in the gun range and in the store at Shooting Star Gun Club. But after these violations of the rules clearly posted, Skylar Coleman did not fire Drew Cantrell. Skylar Coleman did not make Cantrell undergo any other instruction in the realm of firearm safety. Drew Cantrell was promoted. There were clear instructions and they were clearly ignored. Thank you.
All right, the case will be submitted to the jury. We're gonna take just 1 minute to finalize our scores for the closing, and then I'm gonna have you run through your names just one more time again so that we can verify who we have. Give us 1 second to do this, and then we'll.
Maybe we retrieve the exhibits.
Yes.
You will need the exhibits or we take them.
Please.
Thank you much.
Yeah. Yes, then we'll fill it. This is so hard to read. I'm trying to find this closing. I got it.
Get on this, so you need to follow along or anything.
It's really hard to see on a phone.
I whipped it sideways, it'll.
Okay.
I don't reorganize. I know it's not ideal, but.
Yeah.
All right, so if we'll just start with the plaintiff, if you can just run through, we do have access to a list that's accurate, but not super easy to read, so you can just kind of run through what your name was and what your role was. We'll start with.
My name is Victoria Backrams. I conducted the cross-examination of everyone and I delivered the closing.
My name is Abigail Burton. I delivered the opening statements for plaintiff, conducted the direct examination for Justice Carbo, and conducted the cross-examination of Drew Kentraw.
My name is Quentin Crawford. I conducted the direct examination of Ross Hernandez and the cross-examination of Jack Stout.
My name is Ryan Winters. I delivered the pre-trial oral argument as well as conducted the direct examination of Dr. Morgan.
My name is Leah Dobson. I portray the role of Ross Hernandez.
I'm Jacob Salta, and I portray Dr. Morgan Judd.
Thank you. And then Chris.
I'm Cy Turner. I did a pre-trial oral argument for cross-examination. My name is Bishop Green, and I delivered the opening statement and conducted the direct examination of Avery Wynn. My name is Sanjit Beavergeese. I conducted the direct examination of Jackie Staub, and I cross-examined Ross Hernandez. My name is Kenny Royer. I did the direct examination of Mr. Cantrell, cross-examination of Ms. Carbo, and my name is Alexander Reddy. My name is Charlie McIntyre, and I'm in Avery Wynn.
Good. Give us 1 minute. And it's up.
Do we need to write? Lauren, do we need to write team names or no? No, we just have to put our own names.
Okay, so I'm done.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I've got it correct.
Who made it? Who made it? Do we need to do like a? Can I ask you, do we need to?
Yeah, I'm putting it as a point of
So we need to do it, like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, mine is done. Yes, I think I just, but I start on the other.
I'm done.
And
Is it ready? Like everything?
should we circle
What,
down?
right?
Rice.
Rice.
Those are the teams.
Rice, like our,
This is a different one.
This would be round three.
Mason, yeah, and R, I.
Rice.
Like that, and.
Oh, was this supposed, I see, was this supposed to be in London until we were done?
Oh, what?
Were we not supposed to know the high schools until we were done? Was that?
Those are teams.
Oh,
Oh, it is high schools. These are just not the names of the
Uh-huh.
schools. They're just their code names.
That's funny because they both sound like real high school names.
They do.
They are high school or not?
High school. If you roar it, it
Yes.
says right here. I don't see that you scored. It's right there.
We only did closing. We didn't have them contemporaneous.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, we didn't, did we? We had closing statements.
And there were buttons.
The rebuttal of the extent. I wish I'd known that one was the same.
It's just right here. It's the team's overall ability to adapt to the trial, which includes their ability to raise and dismiss objections. So just their overall fluidity.
Yeah, that works.
And I will give that back and then you can start the comments.
What about my comments? I don't know.
You're gonna wait 1 minute while we brings our score sheets in. All right. We will begin comments here. I think what we'll do is we'll just go through, you can just introduce yourself briefly who you are and then give your comments. So you want to
Maybe
lead us
you.
off?
Okay, I can start. My name is Lauren Justice. I'm a 1L at Chicago Kent. And this is actually my first mock trial. I think you all did really amazing. I think being able to hold eye contact and continue conversation with the witness was amazing. I don't have specific feedback. Should I give anything?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hi, my name is Maria Venitska. I'm also from Chicago Penn College Law. And I am very impressed by both teams. You guys did amazing work. I really enjoyed the way you expressed your arguments, the way how you cooperate together. Especially, I really loved the way how some objections were fine, like momentarily, very, very bright. And I really like the way you keep an eye contact with us, especially weaknesses. Amazing work. Yes, and I feel that both teams were very good, and it was an honor to be a juror, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
My name is Mitch Piper. I practice law in Michigan, primarily do civil litigation, business litigation, real estate litigation is kind of my area of the law. So I am a litigator. I am in court, but I don't do this type of, this specific type of case. Quite frankly, this is probably much more interesting than all stuff that I do, but I definitely, enjoy the courtroom atmosphere and enjoy having the opportunity to be up here and hear your arguments, push back on your arguments, and listen to the rule and objections and those types of things. So, I guess thank you guys for the work you put in, because it gives us the opportunity to come here and really have an enjoyable experience, because you are so prepared and you're ready to argue those objections, or to make those arguments when I say, you know what? I know you have a great rebuttal where you're going to have some mic drop moment, but I got a couple questions for you, right? And then you're able to adapt to that. So the preparation really did show through, I think, for all that are involved. I'll just kind of give a couple general comments. I know that not everybody does mock trial because they want to be a lawyer or want to work in the justice system in any way, shape, or form. But I do think, and this was pretty clear throughout this. There are skills that you're going to get here that are going to be broadly applicable. And I think the number one skill that you're going to get, we need to adjust the ballot rate.
I'm just need to talk to them.
Okay. I think the number one skill that you get is that adaptability, right? Is when I make a ruling, which you guys have to smile and nod and take with a little bit of grace. And I'm sure you'll go back to your room later and be like, what's he thinking when he did that, right? When I made that ruling, you just have to adapt to it. And that is true regardless of what you're going to be, what your future is going to hold, right? And I always think about whether I'm in court or in any other situation, how do you prepare to adapt to those things when you don't know what my ruling is going to be? When my ruling is going to be different from what the last judge did, right? And I think the key to that is really knowing what story you're trying to tell. So whether you're for the plaintiff or the defendant or whoever, what is my goal in this case? And if it is to prove that Shooting Star was negligent, I can kind of adapt my questioning or my strategy just based on that theme. What gets me to the end of my story? If I just sit there and I prepare and go, okay, I asked question 2 after I asked question 1, when I say you can't get to question 2, or you can't admit that criminal record or something like that, well then, now I'm like a deer in the headlights, right? Whereas if I know, okay, what am I trying to show from this criminal record? You can kind of adapt and work your way around it. A couple legal things. So my wife is also an attorney. She practices on the defense side of cases like this. She's a judge around here as well. She made a comment in another round that I was judging with her that I think it is very useful and that I saw here today. When you're questioning an expert witness, particularly on cross-examination, it's a get it, get out, right? You don't. If there's one thing that I think has been the expert witness characters have been doing really, really well, is acting like experts who know who's lining their pocket, right? They're going to say their story regardless of what you're trying to ask them on cross-examination. And that's what a real expert witness is going to do. They are professionals at this. So you want to get in there, you want to pick out those 1 or 2 things as biases and then get back out. Trust that the jury knows, trust that the jury can see that, trust that even in the mock trial setting, we can see that as well, right? We know where you guys are going. And then I think, that kind of brings up the last point that I would make is when we make a ruling that doesn't always go your way, right? And you can see sometimes everybody's here amping up to that moment where you're going, I've got a great one-liner at the end of this, and I'm gonna say it, and the whole room's gonna erupt in applause, and then they object, and I say, yep, sustained, or you object, sustained, and you can't ask that question, right? Trust that we both as jurors in real life or as mock trial judges, we can see that, right? We can see where that's going and we take all that into account. And so I think just from that perspective, that's always just a reminder to take those rulings with, you know, be humble and smile and nod and then go complain about it later. So it was you know, a pleasure to be here with you and to participate alongside you. One, maybe two more rounds left, right? So you know, you're in a home stretch here. I know this is a tiring, long experience, but you couldn't tell from this. So I appreciated it and wish you the best of luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you guys so much for your. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
I'll come back to you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for your presentation.
Of course.
Are you staying?
Not for this one, for tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't sign up for the rest of the day.
So you're.
Thank you guys for the courtroom.